Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? I'm going to say good morning to False Demolition Groundworks over on Instagram. Haven't seen them before. Good to have you here. Good morning to the usual suspects, who, in no particular order. Gary Muirhead says good morning. Chris Ford says morning and happy anniversary. Yes, I'll come to that in just a moment. Who else do we have here? Dan. No, that's me. Dan Cullen says, morning all. I hope you all had a good weekend. Not bad, not bad. Fully rested, I would say. Mark Whiting is here as well. Jim Turner back on all things anniversary related. Morning, peeps. Happy anniversary to you and Ruth. Yeah. And there's Dan saying good morning to everyone. Yeah, 35 years today. Yeah, 35 years ago this very day, at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, I was about a mile that way. I know that doesn't mean a lot while you're looking at me, but about a mile that way, at Nonsuch Park, and Nonsuch Manor, actually, which is where we had our wedding reception. 35 years. Who'd have thunk it, eh? And yes, I am wearing a West Ham shirt. It takes a brave person to wear a West Ham shirt these days. Our season has been god-awful. God-awful. We're just grateful for the fact that there's 4 or 5 clubs that are much, much worse than we are. And we beat one of those yesterday. And the reason I'm wearing the shirt is because the team that we beat yesterday was Manchester United. Yeah, Manchester United used to strike fear into the heart of West Ham fans. Now, it's a fun day out up at Old Trafford. Guaranteed-ish 3 points. I think we did the double over them this year. Yeah, I think we took 6 points off Man United. Gary Muirhead, 25 years next year, but you are but a whippersnapper. Although didn't you propose it up the Eiffel Tower? Very romantic, very smooth. Well done, sir. Ken Hatter is here as well. Good morning to you, Ken. He's got the clouds. Dan Cullen, happy anniversary. Thank you very much indeed. And Gary saying happy anniversary. Yeah, let's not dwell on all that. I'm equally excited by West Ham's victory yesterday. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road, starting with this. Just very quickly, if you hear some background noise, I can only apologise. I've got a dog asleep under my desk who is snoring quite loudly. Not sure if the mic's picking that up, but also our next door neighbour is doing just a little bit of maintenance work, and it's quite loud. So if you pick that up, my apologies. I can only apologise. And the demo consultant has joined us over on Instagram, as has Joe Brown Construction Company, all the way from the mighty US of A. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's have a look. Dan Cullen says, did you see the video I put up of the first motorway built in 1966? 4K, men on site. I saw it, but I was putting today's show together, so I've not had a chance to watch it yet. Jonathan Duras has just joined us. Good morning, Jonathan. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Chris Ford, 40 years next month. It looks like I'm a million amateur. Where did it all go? Yeah, it is weird, isn't it? It is weird. The bizarre thing about not the bizarre thing, I'm sure that is just the nature of the passage of time, which incidentally is the kind of the cornerstone of my morning monologue today. It doesn't feel like that long. 35 years doesn't feel like that long to be with somebody. But then when you look back at sort of wedding photographs and wedding videos and that sort of thing, and realize that a large proportion of the people that were at our wedding are no longer around, that hits home. Really does. Anyway, all of that aside, it's Monday, the 12th of May. I know the date because I wouldn't dare forget it. Monday, the 12th of May. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming and the Walrus of Demolition. In today's show, Hitachi's glimpse of the future. Komatsu gets even smarter. We've got a big bang all the way from South Africa. And in our latest Bauma stand tour, we're checking out Kinshofer. Plus, in my morning monologue today, it's going to be a tale of dog years and of digger years. It kind of goes together. You'll see when we get there. Dan Cullen says, yeah, Chris, it's come and gone in a heartbeat. It does feel like that. The one that gets me is I really distinctly remember my eldest daughter, her first day at school. I remember, getting her dressed and putting her in school uniform, complete with a shirt and tie and all the things. And she's now got school-aged children herself. That doesn't feel like that should be happening. Really, really doesn't. Now, somebody from Denmark has just said, "Good morning, Denmark here," and it's sunny apparently. Now, let me have a look. Bjarke Tanton. I'm my friend. I can only apologise for my absolute destruction of your name, but good morning. Thank you. If you could tell me a better way to pronounce that, I'd love to hear from you. But Denmark is in the house. Good morning to you. Jim Turner, you're doing better than me, Mark. I never remember our wedding anniversary. With hindsight, probably should have had it tattooed. Dan Cullen says, "Who's looking for a place to stay for plant works? I can get a place for 3 people." Sounds like a deal. Let's have a look. Chris Ford. Oh no, we'll come back to that in just a moment. We do have the small matter of today's mystery machine to resolve. So let me play this, and I'll show you what it is you have to work with. Right, mystery machine. What can I tell you? This is current, but I don't, and it's current here in the UK. I don't reckon you have seen one in the wild. You may have done, but I don't believe you have. So, with that being said, here is the mystery machine that you need to identify. Very new, it's very specialist. I haven't changed the colour, that is its natural colour. If you've got any thoughts on that, please let me know in the chat. While you're doing that, I want to quickly remind you of today's question of the day. I hope I've got the right one. Yeah, so today's morning monologue is loosely based on the subject of time. So in keeping with that, today's question of the day is very much time related as well. It is this: who or what is the biggest waste of time on site? Is it paperwork and admin? Is it repetitive safety briefings and toolbox talks rather? Is it the site manager who has to say everything and write everything in triplicate? Let us know. I know we've already had a couple of answers. Let's have a look. Ken Hatcher said scraping the road in the morning. Fair enough. Chris Ford says waiting for the site induction serve a purpose, but hearing the same thing time and time again. Yeah, that's I can imagine. And I know there's a thing called information overload, which I'm not suggesting that this is, but at what point do you start to zone out? Do you remember? I'm sure I've even used this analogy before. You remember after Live Aid back in 1985, there was a concern over what they referred to as charity fatigue. In other words, we'd become so numbed by constant photographs and the images of starving children that they started to just bother us less. Is that the case with Toolbox Talks? If you go in for a Toolbox Talk or a safety briefing and it starts the same as it did yesterday or the day before or the day before that, do you just find yourself wandering off and thinking about lunch? Do you? I'd love to hear from you. We've had some immediate answers on our question of the day. Ken Hatcher reckons it could be the JCB 3CX hydrogen. It is not. Jim Turner rather reckons it could be the hydrogen 4X. It's not 4CX rather. It's not the JCB 3CX hydrogen. You're all in the right ballpark, but you're not. There's a little bit more. Does that help? Does that help? Keep the answers coming in on our question of the day. What is the biggest waste of time on site? But also keep the answers coming in on our question of the day. I'll be back immediately after this with a glimpse of the future. Yeah, we already told you a little bit about this, but we actually produced a proper film, i.e., Fred behind the camera, on the Hitachi Landcross One, which I have to say was probably the biggest showstopper at the whole of Bauma. And this is it up close.
My name is Bill Drugas, Manager of Product Management, and I would like to welcome you at the Hitachi stand at Bauma 2025, where behind me you can find our concept model Landcross One. Landcross One represents our vision for the future of construction machinery and represents our plans for safety, optimization on performance, productivity, and operability, where you will see the operator working from the operator's cab, converted to fully autonomous or remotely operated all around the globe. Landcross One is equipped with advanced safety systems, with sensors and cameras all around, can detect and recognize a person or an object and automatically react by giving priority on safety. Integrated digital solutions ensures the scanning and surveying of the surrounding area. Landcross One could be converted in a very short period of time for conventional diesel-driven to hydrogen power package or to fully electric when this is required by the application. The operator's cab has been designed with the operator's comfort in mind, representing the needs of the current and future generations. We hope to see you soon at Hitachi Bauma stand and provide you with more information about our concept model.
And yes, your eyes weren't deceiving you. There actually was a drone. There's a drone helipad on the back of that machine. That's how far ahead they're thinking. Good morning to Frank over at Diacon Demo, all the way from Australia, down under. Good morning, Frank. Good of you to join us. Hope you're fitting well, my friend. We've got a right answer on our mystery machine. I think it may be his first points this month. Could be. Looks like it. Let's have a look. Jim Turner. Let me show you what you were working with. Jim Turner reckons it could be hydrogen telehandler. It's not. Gary Muirhead going for the JCB Fast Track. Chris Ford going for the Merlot Roto 5035S. It's not. Gary Muirhead says JCB hydrogen gastric. I'm not sure what that is. Let's have a look. Ken Hatcher is going for the JCB hydrogen forklift. Dan Cullen is going for the heavy loading shovel. But I can tell you the absolute on the money right answer was this. There you are. It is one of those. It is actually the hydrogen refueler or the hydrogen Bowser from JCB. Jonathan Duras has got the right answer. And just to prove that neither he nor I are barking mad, there it is in all its glory. Let's get Jonathan's comment out the way. There you are. That's what it is. Well spotted, sir. Well spotted indeed. 3 points to you. Going back to the Hitachi Landcross, Ken Hatcher says, I'll be dead before that goes into production. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure it was ever planned to go into production. Maybe it is. I don't know. Hitachi are playing their cards fairly close to their chest, but that's one of the things that I enjoy. I enjoy about concept machines and prototypes is that idea of here's a thing, the world, come and look at our thing. What do you reckon? Now, I did see there was a few videos doing the rounds on that, talking about the fact that a lot of it was plastic. It's a concept machine. Who cares? Who cares? I actually don't know what difference that makes, the fact that it's plastic. Nobody was buying it. It's not available. So why not represent what it is they're thinking of? There's more to come from the whole Landcross idea, though. So watch this space, and there will be more to come. Dan Cullen says, well done, Boyo. That's aimed at Jonathan Duras, who has got our correct answer today. Keep the answers coming in on our biggest waste of time. We do have one more. Where are we there? Jim Turner. Question of the day. Biggest waste of time on site. Bucket changing areas. Waste of time, he says, with an expletive thrown in for good measure, and actually makes sites more dangerous. I can kind of see it. I can kind of see it, but not what you'd call convenient. And I go back to the same thing I say every time. Separate man and machine. Don't separate machine from attachments. That seems like a more sensible idea. Dan Cullen says, I wonder how much that fast track would be. I don't know. They manufacturers don't share prices with us old press people. Partly because they can make no allowance for dealer discounts and, bulk discounts and that kind of thing. And to be honest, I think with that one, it's probably so far down the line, it's probably not even worth worrying about prices at the moment. But yeah, just a couple of things. Well, one thing in particular, I've written an article which is far less than complimentary about the NFDC and in particular the outgoing CEO of the NFDC. And I was about to upload it this morning and I've hesitated. Not that it's wrong. I mean, it's absolutely right. I've checked my facts. It's absolutely right. Don't know why I'm holding back, but keep an eye out for it. It will be coming. Dan, going back to bucket changing areas, I'm with Jim, complete waste of time consuming. Yeah, indeed. Anything else gets you go in terms of time wasting? While you think about that, we'll play this and then we're going to come back with some smart construction from the mighty Komatsu.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, I think we all by now associate Komatsu with smart construction. Well, they're getting smarter by the day, like this.
Smart Construction 3D Machine Guidance is an affordable 3D system for excavators. It can be installed on machines of almost any size in your fleet, new or legacy. With this solution, operators in the field and managers in the office have access to 3D design and payload data that can help drive accuracy, control load volumes, and promote optimized operations. So how does it work? Antennas mounted at the rear of the machine use Global Navigation Satellite System, or GNSS technology, to enable position tracking and monitor body rotation movement. Sensors installed in the boom arm, bucket, and body frame monitor their movements in real time, matched with the GNSS positions. The result is a real-time bucket tip position that is always accurate. This information is displayed on a tablet mounted in the cab, along with the desired design. This helps operators dig precisely to the design, getting the work done right the first time. The actual design can come from an engineered 3D file or one created by the operator on the tablet in the field. The system uses the Android-based tablet of your choice. Once the hardware is installed, simply download the app from the Google Play Store. In addition to guiding operators to dig to plan, payload measuring enables them to monitor the weight of individual buckets in real time. This not only tracks productivity, it can help optimize loading and prevent overloading of trucks. The system and operator interface includes features you usually expect from higher cost systems, including multi-constellation GNSS, in-field design, steering indicator, and the ability to take topography shots directly from the cab of the machine. All just one click from the home screen for efficiency. You can realize even more benefits by integrating Smart Construction 3D Machine Guidance with other Smart Construction solutions. Smart Construction Dashboard uses the as-built data from machines to create accurate visualizations and progress reports. Smart Construction Fleet collects historical payload data for progress reporting and operator evaluation. Ready for the benefits of 3D Machine Guidance? Contact your local Komatsu distributor. They'll arrange installation of the system and show you how to use all the Smart Construction 3D Machine Guidance features to drive your results.
Don't get much smarter than that. Dan Cullen, I think, on the money here. Question of the day today is, what is the biggest waste of time on demolition and construction sites? He says, too many chiefs, not enough Indians on major construction jobs. Dan, if I were to guess, if I'd guessed ahead of time, I would have guessed the same thing. Yeah, we do seem to have a love of middle management. Not many people doing work, but lots of people telling people how to do work. Question of the day. Also, having 20 different contractors on site doing the same thing, and then they come and reinstate your work compared to years ago when one contractor did all the groundworks and civils, another did the building and so on. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's become a bit of a bugger's muddle, hasn't it? Anywho, what have we got next? Oh yeah, we're heading to South Africa. We've got viewers from Denmark and Australia, and we're now going to South Africa immediately after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Jim Turner, going back to the smart construction thing with Komatsu, this tech needs linking with dumper and wagon position so they can pull operators that don't position dumpers in an efficient place. A lot of diesel wear and time is lost through poor positioning. I would imagine it probably can. I think they're accurate down to a metre or two, if not less than that. I would imagine they could probably do that. Are they doing it already? If anybody's from Komatsu is watching, let us know. Love to hear from you. Yes, we're heading to South Africa for a big bang like this. We have got probably the best time arrival I've ever heard of. Ed Butler. Good morning, Ed. Good morning all. Happy anniversary to Mark, Mark and Ruth. Thank you very much indeed, Ed. Your timing is absolutely spot on because Ed makes a cameo appearance in just a few moments. Yes, I've promised you a cameo appearance by Ed and also by Steve. Sit back and enjoy. As you can see, Ed and Steve did themselves and Kinshofer extremely proud. They were. I will play you the video at some point. I did actually choose my top 3 displays. They were one of them. What have we got here? Dan Cullen enjoying the tune. Oh, yeah, going back to the blast that we saw a few weeks to tidy that up. I wonder if are they as big into recycling materials as we are in the UK? Do you know? I don't know the answer to that. Not really that. Don't have my finger on the recycling pulse over in South Africa, I'm afraid. But I'll have a word with Jet Demolition, who did that job, see if they can shed some light. Anyway, that's about it for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying and also to deliver my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. But if you do have the time and the inclination, do please stick around because I'm talking about dog years and digger years. Immediately after... I have 2 boxer dogs, a brother and a sister, called Diesel and Echo. We didn't name them. Those are the names they had when we rescued them. Although, given that I write about demolition and construction equipment, Diesel does seem to be a pretty apt name. Diesel, who is the boy, is a lump of a dog. Big, heavy-footed, and always hungry. The kind of dog who thumps his way through life, crashing into furniture and knocking over plant pots with his tail, completely oblivious. He hates the sun, always searching for shade, panting the moment the temperature creeps above cool. Echo, who is fast asleep under my desk at the moment, is different. She's smaller, daintier, smarter too. A picky eater with refined tastes. She turns up her nose at any food unless it's served with a flourish. She loves the sun, lying outstretched for hours as if basking in her own quiet contentment. Her eyes still sparkle, but her ears no longer hear. She's now almost completely deaf. They're both 14 years old now. In dog years, that's ancient. 98 by the book. And every day I see the little signs that time is catching up. Diesel sometimes slips when he stands. Echo startles when I touch her, no longer hearing me approach. I know, though I try not to dwell on it, that the time I have left with them is short. We rescued them when they were just a year old. I like to think we saved them, gave them a good life, but in truth, I think they saved us too, offering love that expected nothing and gave everything at once. During the dark days of COVID, they were my sole reason for leaving the house, saving my sanity on long, quiet walks, uninterrupted by cars and people. These days, as I work from home, they are my constant companions. They follow me from room to room, light my feet while I type, nudge my hand for attention or snacks when I get too lost in thought. They're more than pets now. They're my rhythm, my routine, my shadow. Sometimes I catch myself wondering how I'll cope when they're gone. And in one of those odd, meandering thoughts we all have, I found myself drawing a strange comparison to the machines that accompany our lives, specifically diggers. It sounds odd, I know, but if a human year is equal to 7 dog years, what would be the equivalent in digger years? Consider this: you might work with the same digger every day for 5, maybe 6 years. By then, the machine has lived a full century in digger time. It has grown old alongside you. Like my dogs, your digger has become a constant companion. You've come to know its quirks, the way it starts on cold mornings, the squeak in the armrest, the slight pull on the joystick. You know how it moves, how it reacts. You can almost sense when something's off, even before a warning light flashes. Just as I buy treats for Diesel and Echo, a new collar, their favourite biscuits, you kit out your cab with air fresheners, seat covers, floor mats. You make it your own. You spend more time with that machine than you do with your family some weeks. You eat your lunch with it, listen to music in it. Maybe, if you're like me with my dogs, you even talk to it too. And maintenance? It's not really that much different to a visit to the vet, is it? Bit of grease here, an oil change there. The fitter arrives like a doctor with a stethoscope, diagnosing rattles and clunks, prescribing parts and labour, all to keep your bond with your machine going just a little bit longer. And people outside the industry talk about machines like they're cold, lifeless things, tools to get the job done. But anyone who's spent real time in one knows that's not true. Like a dog, a digger becomes an extension of who you are. It responds to your touch, it reflects your moods. There's comfort in the familiar hum of the engine, the hiss of the hydraulics, the creak of worn controls. Now, I've owned 5 boxer dogs in my life, each one different, each one cherished. And when the time came to say goodbye, each one left a void I wasn't sure I could ever fill again. But somehow each time I did. And I know I will again when Diesel and Echo are gone. Not because they're replaceable, but because the love they gave is too powerful to fade. And I suspect the same goes for machines in a way. That last day with your digger, the one that's carried you through wind and rain and broken ground and long hours, it will sting more than you expect. You'll remember the jobs you tackled together, the early starts, the late finishes, the days you laughed, the days you swore, the quiet moments when it was just you and the hum of the engine. And yes, there will be another machine, newer, cleaner, maybe even more powerful. But you'll still glance back. You'll still think of the old one with the same. You'll still think of the old one with a kind of tenderness that only time can forge. Because time doesn't just age us; it bonds us. It ties memories to moments, and moments to machines or dogs. And when those bonds finally break, what we're left with is the echo of everything they meant to us. As I write this, Diesel is snoring next door, one paw twitching as if chasing something in a dream. Echo is actually laying across my feet, her chest rising and falling in perfect peace. I watch them and I wonder how many more memories. I watch them and wonder how many memories are wrapped up in their presence. The walks, the mess they made, the licks, the soft eyes on hard days. And maybe that's what this is all really about. Whether it's a dog or a digger, it's not the years that matter, but the life shared in between. The quiet loyalty, the dependable company, the countless small ways they make your days feel complete. And when the day comes that they're gone, there'll be a silence in the spaces they used to fill. But there'll also be gratitude for the time, the service, the love, and the partnership. I'm old enough now to realise that goodbye is just another part of the journey. Painful? Yeah, but also proof that something or someone meant enough to leave a mark. And that's the kind of legacy that both dogs and diggers can leave behind. Choked there. Don't know why I wrote it. There you are, dogs and diggers. There you are. Let me go back. Let me go back to all things related to. Oh, just going to get my foot out from under Echo. Yes. Our question today was, what is the biggest waste of time on site? Steve Williamson said, first of all, said good morning, and then said ground workers. Dan Cullen, Diesel, yes, very much like you. He hates the sun. He does literally walks around the house looking for a cool spot. Whereas Echo, our garden gets sunniest at the far end first. We've got a wooden shed at the far end. She gets out of bed in the morning, strolls around, has her breakfast, and then you will find her with her back pressed against a wooden shed because there's warmth coming off the wooden shed. Absolutely loves it out there. Now that's true, knowing your machine like a person. Yeah. Yeah, and you do. And I know some of it is wrapped up in sentimentality, and I think the greater the distance between you and that machine, we all look back fondly. I know Gary's got a bit of a soft spot for O&K machines. There's a bit of a soft spot for RBs and Priestmans and Hymax and that kind of thing. But also those machines that you maybe were on a really tough job, and together you kind of pulled each other through. It does leave an indelible mark, much the same as a dog. It really does. It is your partner. Let's have a look. Dogs, diggers, all easy to talk to as they don't answer back or disagree with you. Maybe that's it. Maybe. Can I ask you a question? And I'm not judging, because I will tell you now. I not only do I talk to my dogs, I have full-blown conversations with them. I genuinely do. Obviously, they don't answer back. And sometimes I use them as a sounding board. I'm just walking around the house, I'm basically talking to myself, but I'm aiming it at the dogs. Do you talk to your machine? And I mean beyond the start, you bastard. Do you talk to your machines? I'd love to hear from you. And as I say, I'm not judging. I talk to a dog. I am not in a position to judge. Jim Turner says, yes, a newer machine comes along, but not always better. Yeah. It's a weird one, and it's like comparing your children in some ways. As I say, we've had 5 boxer dogs. I bought my first boxer dog for my wife's 21st birthday, which is a while ago. we've been married for 35 years, so that gives you an idea of how long ago that was, before we were married. And just, well, with hindsight, he was a fantastic dog. He really, really was a fantastic dog. But we had a brand new carpet installed in our first house. He ate that. I got home from work one afternoon and couldn't get in the front door because he had been left on his own for a little bit longer than he decided was necessary. So he'd taken a double bed mattress, pulled it down the stairs, and had left it behind the front door. So I literally couldn't get in my own house. With all that being said, I have nothing but fond memories of him. Diesel, the one that's next door at the moment, we were living in a new house, brand new house, and he ate the bottom stair. And when I say he ate the bottom stair, I don't mean he ate the carpet, although that did go. He ate the wood that the stair was made of as well. He ate the bottom stair, and yet love him to death. Jim Turner says lost Fred the pug last year, and Max, our old lad, is slowing down now too. Yeah, it's a hard one. It is a hard one. I mean, Diesel's got a couple of lumps, and we've been told basically he's too old to go under the knife. And he's still happy, you know. He still eats all his food, still begs for biscuits, still, you know, hops around the place. He is slowing down. His eyesight's not what it was. Echo's deaf, completely deaf. She's lost a couple of her teeth. I know we're not far off. And I've the one thing I would say is we've probably hung on to our last dog a little bit too long. He'd had a couple of seizures, which we were clutching at straws and hoping they would grow out, or he would grow out of it, when we probably knew in our heart of hearts that he was on his way out, and we probably hung on to him just a little bit too long before he finally expired. I mean, he actually died in my arms. I'm not sure that's a good thing or a bad thing, to be honest. But I'm very conscious of that with these two. I don't want either of them to suffer. Both of them are happy and content at the moment, but I think the moment it starts to look like they're uncomfortable, they're suffering, you know, I think I'm big enough and ugly enough to make the decision, as painful as that decision is. Ed Butler, going back to our question today, lots of paperwork. Yeah, I was expecting paperwork to be top of the list, to be honest. There does seem to be a piece of paper for everything these days, doesn't it? And particularly bearing in mind, you know, I know we talk about AI and stuff a lot on this show. When you think about the capabilities that we have now with not just AI, but with electronics, you know, if you wanted to, a lot of what you do now in paper form could be done electronically on an iPad or a computer or whatever it might be. Would that not be easier? You know, it still staggers me, you know, logging into a site with a bit of paper, and it's always dog-eared and it's always been rained on. What happens with that? I guess if there's an emergency, they can actually check who was there on that day. But would that not be better off on an electronic thing, so that there's a permanent record? You know, should there be a, I don't know, a theft or something like that? Who was on site that day? Well, he doesn't work for us. Who the bloody hell was he? Surely that would be an idea. Dan Cullen admits, and fair play to you. Yes, I do talk to my machine. I say, well, that's another great day's work. Or come on, you fucker, get that bit of power. Yeah, I do a thing, and this is not talking to my computer. Here's my keyboard. That's where the magic happens, on that keyboard. And if I've written a really good phrase or a really good sentence, or more specifically, if I've finished a really good article, one that I'm really proud of, the full stop on my little keyboard here gets a, there you are. It's, you know, like Elton John sort of bangs the piano at the end of a song. That's me with this keyboard. Steve Williamson says, we have our timesheets, vehicle checks, product ordering, holiday requests, all on an app. Works great, as it should. As it should. Yeah. I mean, bearing in mind, I am still a human being that carries around a notepad with me, but most of what I do now resides on that. Why would you do anything else? I was looking at a piece of tech. I can't remember what it was called, but is it called a Quest? Something like that. Like a little clip-on device that it kind of responds to your voice or to the voice of others, and you wear it and you basically go out into the wild and it records what you say and what you know, people that you interact with, and it stores it and then stores it up in the cloud. But you can then say to it the following day, what did Steve say about timesheets? And it will look through its memory and say, oh, Steve said they're all on an app now. It's that clever. I'd get a use out of that. I have to admit, the Notes app, and particularly the voice notes app on there, gets a bit of punishment from me because when I'm driving, I've had an idea, speak to it. You know, Ed says I wouldn't go into detail the amount of paperwork I have to do in my work. See, I'm sure, and bearing in mind, you know, this is the wrong way to describe it, but Ed's job, the same as Steve's job, the same as Dan's job, the same as Jim and Ken's job, you're digger drivers. That's, you know, what does it say on your job description? It says you drive a digger. It doesn't say you fill in copious amounts of paperwork. And yet that seems to be part and parcel of the job these days. Endless paperwork. And to what end? Give you an example. Back in the day when I worked on the magazine Contract Journal, we used to sell binders so that you could gather together your contract journals, punch a hole in them, and keep them in a folder so that you could refer back to them. But imagine, I mean, we were producing a weekly magazine, so there's usually 50 copies per year. If I said to you, oh, you know, go back and find that piece that I did on the Thwaites 6-ton dumper, you've got to go through 50 copies, 50 issues to find the piece that I'm talking about. Who does that? Who does that with paperwork now? You know, unless there's a problem, unless there's an incident or, I don't know, an accident or a fraud or whatever it might be, who is all of that for? And would you not be better off making everything electronic so it's immediately stored, everybody has access to it, at head office, site level, emergency services, investigative authorities, should the need arise, everybody has access to that, rather than what does that word there say where he's scratched his name there? Who's that? I can't read his writing. And how many timesheets, or not timesheets, signing sheets, have you had where the person signing in is Donald Duck or Adolf Hitler or James Bond? We've all seen it. Some of us have done it. On that issue, just as a small aside, I don't know if he can hear this. Sometimes me and Fred will go to a site together, and we, rather than both of us going into the site office to sign in, one of us will do it for both of us. And I discovered a while back that when Fred signs me in, he signs me in as Mark B. Anthony. My middle name is Sean. There is no B. And I said, what? Why have you signed me in as Mark B. Anthony? Because it's funny. So now he signs me in as Mark B. Anthony. I sign him in as Fred Disraeli Anthony. Yeah, because we have not enough to do. Ed's job description is HR, machine op, ground worker, supervisor, drilling operator, first aider, trainer, and so on. Tea-boy, bottle washer. Yeah, I know the feeling. That's kind of my job as well. Yeah, pretty much everything that happens in these four walls, that's me, including the cup of tea I made myself just before I came on here. I said I was going to do two things. I do have this article that I've written. Cut a long story short. Those of you that have been watching this show for any length of time will probably remember the name Anne Mackay. Anne is the widow of a guy called John Mackay, who was one of the two guys killed when a chimney blew up, or a stack blew up a Redcar back in, let me think, 2019, I think it was, September 2019. I've been in touch with Anne for quite some time, on and off. About almost a year ago, she sent me a message and said she wanted to write to the National Federation of Demolition Contractors basically to see if they could bring some pressure to bear on the police or the health and safety executive or both or whatever it might be. I basically told her she was wasting her time because the accident in which her husband had been killed was an NFDC member's site, but she wanted to do the letter. Not only did she want to do the letter, she wanted my help in writing the letter. So I wrote the letter, sent it off to her for her to send on, which she did. She sent it to the incumbent, although soon to be former CEO of the NFDC back in June last year. A wee while later, she had a response to say, we've received your letter. We will be responding more fully shortly. And then nothing. And here we are nearly a year later, and she's had nothing at all, which I've got to be honest, I told her to expect that. I did tell her to expect that. So in a fit of pique, I wrote an article about it. I realise it's going to come across as poking the bear, which, whatever. I also realise it's kind of a shot across the bows of somebody who, within the next week or two, won't be there anymore. It just happens to be almost the first anniversary of that. So, and yet, I had it prepared for today, hovering over the post button, and then I took my finger away, and I've no idea why. No idea why. Maybe it is that thing of poking the bear. Not that I'm bothered what anyone at the NFDC thinks of me these days. I'm way past worrying about that. But yeah, it will be coming. I'm still not entirely convinced why I'm hesitating, to be honest. Plant Machinery Traders has just joined us over on Instagram. Says, hope you're doing well, Mark. We are doing exceptionally well. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Thank you for joining us. Going back to Ed Butler, he in addition to all the jobs that Steve said he had, he's also a truck driver, thinker, and doer. Did I have you down as a thinker? Yes, I probably did. Now, the other thing that I want to tell you about, and I realise this is going to split the audience somewhat, and I'm good with that. So I mentioned that I'm spending quite a bit of time over on Substack these days, and I'm reading a lot about American politics, and more specifically about the madness of the orange fella in the White House. That all takes place at 5,000 miles away. So I try not to lose sleep over it, even though, as the saying goes, America sneezes, UK catches cold. But I have a concern. I have a concern that we could all too easily follow the same path. Not necessarily the tariffs, not necessarily wanting to own Greenland and make Canada part of our nation, but the other bits. Now, both my parents voted for Brexit. Both of my in-laws, mother-in-law and father-in-law, voted for Brexit. 3 of the 4 of those are now dead. They made a decision that will echo through my life, and more specifically through the life of my children and my grandchildren and so on down the line. And they decided, largely on racial and immigration reasons, they decided they wanted no more to do with Johnny Foreigner. And now 3 of them aren't here anymore. Which, much as I love my parents, was an incredibly fucking selfish thing to do. Now, against that background, I am looking at, and I think it's a perceived rise of the Reform Party. Now, I'm not a fan of Keir Starmer. I don't think Ms. Badenoch will be around for very long, because I don't think she's particularly good. But that, to my mind, opens the way for reform to get a tighter grip. Now, back in UKIP days, despite the fact that I think the concern over UKIP was one of the reasons that David Cameron agreed to give us the Brexit vote in the first place. Nigel Farage and UKIP back in the day were a tiny, tiny, inconsequential little party. In absolute truth, Reform is a tiny, tiny, inconsequential party. However, given the links between Farage and his mate Trump, you'd have to think that he now has the playbook on how to make himself less inconsequential than he is. Manipulation of the media, false narratives, fake news, so on and so on and so on. Now, going back to my point about Brexit and about my children, my grandchildren, and everything else, I was sat here over the weekend ruminating on all of this. If Reform does come to any kind of power, whether national or influential power, that, in my opinion, that will be bad for me, should I stick around long enough to see it, but will certainly be bad for my children, my grandchildren, and so on down the line. So I've decided, I haven't actually started it yet. I'm actually thinking about starting a separate Substack, and that's where I'm going to focus all of my political stuff. But I'm not doing it. I'm not going to be reporting on the news. That's not, there are better people out there to do that. I'm not going to be reporting on it like, an analyst or anything like that. Just looking at it as a person who wants his children and grandchildren to inherit a world where we're not so divided along gender lines and race lines and religious lines and all of that kind of thing, all of which, as we've seen, is all part of the Trump playbook. And the Trump playbook, let's be absolutely honest, is the Farage playbook. They may well have written it together for all the hell I know. I don't want my children to inherit that. I will tell you about it once when I've done it, and then I'll not mention it anymore because it's not for you. I don't want to impose my political beliefs on you. As I say, I realise it's a divisive thing. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. My opinion is, I think we should all just get along. There you are. That's my politics in a sentence. We should all just get along, rather than trying to do down other people for their sexuality, their gender, their race, their religion, their creed, their colour, whatever it might be. Just get along. That's my politics. As I say, I won't mention it again after that. You only think it's selfish because you think they're wrong. No, Jim, I don't often disagree with you, but on this I am going to disagree. My parents voted for Brexit and lived in Brexit for 2 years, and then they were gone. My father-in-law voted for Brexit and he saw 4 years. But my children will see it for possibly the remainder of their life. They didn't vote for it. That's my point. Jim Turner says, Reform are already moulding the country. Labour is already echoing their policy because they're scared of losing more voters. A party doesn't need to be in power to influence policy. Jim, now that bit I do agree with. And that, I've got to be honest, that is my biggest concern. And that's why I brought up the David Cameron Brexit vote. In absolute truth, UKIP back in the day, 2016, 2015, 2016, in the run-up to the Brexit vote, I can't even remember, did they have seats in Parliament? I can't remember, 1 or 2 possibly, I can't remember, which is why I'm not going to report on it from a news standpoint. I don't watch it closely enough. But they were a tiny, 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 tiny minority who were basically playing to the right-leaning, Sun reading, Daily Star reading part of the country. I've read The Sun. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with people that do read The Sun. Not one bit. If you're old enough to remember Jasper Carrott, you'll know that he used to refer to Sun readers. The problem is, despite the fact that they didn't actually have any, or they didn't wield any political power, I get the very distinct impression that David Cameron and his cohorts were looking over their shoulder thinking, these guys are gaining in popularity, and some of what they're saying seems to be resonating with a certain group of people. We need a bit of that. Why don't we have a vote on our presence in the EU? And my guess is they probably said, we'll give them the vote on the EU. Nobody's going to be daft enough to say, let's get out. And lo and behold, part of the nation did, and we're now left to carry the can. And I think now, bearing in mind all that's going with trade deals and everything else, with the US not being the influence that it once was, or trying its level best not to be the trading partner that it once was, despite the trade deal between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump, I think our exposure now, being outside the EU, has been revealed. I really do. Brexit was just a ball of shit, as European human rights has fucked it. Over all these illegals can use it against us. Don't agree with that at all. And here's the other point. And this is where I start to get more concerned. There is a possibility, I don't actually expect it to happen, but there is a possibility that because the Conservative Party, having been pretty shitty for 13 years and having been kicked to the curb, and now having a leader who doesn't appear to be particularly leaderish, there is a possibility that our second party could be the Reform Party. There is therefore a possibility that they might end up running the country. I don't believe that to be the case, but there is a possibility. And, if it's a possibility, you need to address it. We know that Reform is not particularly big on immigrants. But what else? What can anybody tell me what else Farage and his cohorts talk about? Is there something else that you think, okay, well, let's bring them into power. Let's get rid of all of these squiffy migrants that we don't like particularly. Not me, by the way. I'm just paraphrasing. We get rid of all those, but what else you got? What's your take on the economy, the environment, the National Health Service, the rail system, and all the police force, all the other things that make the country work? What's their take on that? Does anyone know? Does anyone care? That's my feeling on it. And as I say, when I'm old enough to remember, when I was at school, late 70s, there was I kind of caught the tail end of skinheads and the National Front and these various sort of fascisty, anti-migrant, anti-black, anti-Jewish organisations that proliferated when it's the same old thing. It was exactly the same thing that brought Hitler to power. In the late 70s, we'd had 3-day weeks, winter of discontent, strikes. The country was in a pretty poor state, and as is always the case, when a country is in a pretty poor state, we look for somebody to blame, and we always look to those that are not us. In Hitler's case, it was the Jews. In our case, it was black people. Black people are to blame. They came over here stealing our jobs. We actually imported them to do the jobs that we didn't want to do, bus drivers and so on down the line. So we made our bed, and then when times got hard, we decided everything was their fault. Exactly the same as we've got again now. The country's in the doldrums. Who do we blame? Well, let's blame the Muslims. Let's blame I don't know, whoever flavour of the month is. The problem with it, and I do blame the media, and bearing in mind that's kind of where I live. One of my concerns with all of this is the fact that we are now normalising that kind of thing. When you see Question Time, and they normally have somebody from the Labour Party, some from the Conservative Party, somebody from the Liberal Party, maybe somebody from Plaid Cymru or Scottish Parliament or whatever it might be, sometimes a celebrity, and then they tend to throw in a bit of a quirk. So sometimes they'll have somebody, I don't know, from Reform or UKIP or somebody. UKIP back in the day and now Reform seem to get more of a bite of the cherry than, for example, the Green Party. To my mind, a vote for Reform is as much a waste of time as a vote for the Green Party. I don't actually believe any of them will ever get into power. But surely representation suggests that you should be able to speak to the Greens as much as you speak to the right leanings. Immigration is the biggest issue our country has faced since World War II. It affects jobs, tax, NHS, waiting times, crime, policing, justice. Controlled immigration of skilled workers is a great thing, but we don't want the dregs of the world here. You actually think that's the biggest thing facing us at the moment, do you? I would have thought, I mean, let me think. I've been voting for 42 years. And I think myself and pretty much everybody that I know largely votes on based on what's in their back pocket. You vote on who you believe to be best to safeguard the economy. As I say, and this is a personal view, and I probably shouldn't be getting political on this show because I'm going to save it for the other thing that I'm about to do. I think immigration has become little more than a blame game. The NHS is struggling. Too many bloody foreigners in it. The foreigners prop it up. When my dad was dying in hospital, every single nurse, every single doctor, every single oncologist, every single person that we dealt with was a foreigner. And they kept him alive. So I don't have an issue with that. I just think it's an absolute blame game. The NHS is crumbling. Blame the foreigners. The economy's bad. Blame the foreigners. And this, let's be absolutely honest. If immigration were that big a concern, and I'm asking a question here, I'm not making a statement, but the tail end of Rishi Sunak's stay in number 10 was almost exclusively on his battle against small boats. Just as an aside, what constitutes a small boat? Did anybody ever say, a boat over 40 foot long is a big boat and we're not worried about that? But that's an aside. He built his entire stance in that final general election on combating immigration. And the British nation still went, no, on your bike, pal. So with that being the case, is immigration really, really the biggest? When I lay in bed at night, am I worried about the Muslim that lives next door? Am I worried about a boat arriving under the cover of darkness at Dover? Or am I worried about the price of my shopping, the amount that I'm paying for petrol or diesel? But they don't need to get into power to influence policy, so a vote for reform isn't a wasted vote. That is certainly true. And that is one of my concerns, which is precisely why I'm doing this thing over in the corner here. Taxpayers are the only thing that props up the NHS, and our country had too many people coming here that don't pay tax. It's a selective thing, though. As I say, everybody in the National Health Service that kept my mum alive, that kept my dad alive for as long as they did, foreign. The foreigners that come to work, I agree with, but those that pay smugglers thousands to get here, I have an issue with. Not vetted past multiple safe countries to try to get here. Yeah. Why is it, though? Why is it that we are taking, by comparison, we are taking far, 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 far fewer migrants than Germany? And not only have Germany managed to integrate, but they've also maintained a left-leaning political system. maybe the lessons of the Second World War are that much fresher in the minds of the Germans. Maybe that's it. But, you know, we're taking in a few thousand. The Germans have taken in millions, literally millions. And yet they seem to make it work. Okay, Germany's bigger than us, land mass and everything else. Maybe there's a degree of that. As I say, maybe the hangover from the Second World War is we don't want to go down that road again, do we, fellas? Maybe there's a bit of that. Anyway, I didn't want to go down this road, and I wasn't planning to talk about this. I'm going to talk about this over on my other Substack when I finally get around to launching it. I just want to let you know what I was up to. The working man paying for these people to be looked after, free houses, hotels, we're paying the price. Let me ask you a question, Dan. Imagine something really bizarre happens. There's I don't know, a meteorite strikes Westminster, and the only politician to survive is Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage sweeps to power. There he is. He's in number 10 Downing Street, and he can do whatever he damn well pleases. And he says, everybody, all the migrants, all the Muslims, whatever it might be, on your bike. Do like Donald Trump is doing with ICE. We're going to round them up, get lots of big boats, and fuck them off into the ocean. When he's done that, when they're gone, when there are none of them left, how much better off do you think you'll be as a working man? Do you think you'll be suddenly swimming in cash? Do you think that half your pay packet will now be left over at the end of the week? Jim Turner says, I'm not bothered what colour or religion someone is. It's just a maths problem. We need skilled taxpaying immigrants who contribute to the country, not come here and cost me money. That's why we're taxed so much. Okay. How many British nationals? And let's, I realise they come in a variety of flavours, but let's be absolutely honest. Let's call a spade a spade. How many white British nationals are claiming dole unemployment benefits? You bothered by them? Or are we selective about those as well? And I'll be honest with you, I think I kind of am. If there is a young unmarried mother, young child, can't afford to pay her bills, been kicked out by her parents, and she's claiming a bit of what we used to refer to as rock and roll, the dole, fair play. Yeah, I'm more than happy for some of the money out of my pay packet to go to help with her and her child. Not a problem at all. Lazy bastard who spends it all on fags, the new iPhone, and the 50-inch TV so they can sit on their fat arse at home during the day. Not so keen. Put it this way, if our country was at war and people are dying, buildings getting blown up, would you not want to take your family to a safer place out with the UK? I would. If I could move to another country to protect my family, I would. There you are. I realise he's a Scot, so that probably means he's going to be head of Scottish, the Scottish independence. But that, to my mind, is exactly it. And listen, much the same as I've just said about the white people being lazy and stuff like that. I'll clarify on that. I realise that some of the people that are coming here are not fleeing war-torn countries or persecution for one reason or another. But I'd rather help those that are, despite the fact that some will game the system. Because let's be honest, there are plenty of white people that were born and raised here that are gaming the system every single bit as much. There's a difference between lazy and taking the piss to others that just want to protect their family, yeah? Yes, I am. I take all the money out of the welfare system and just concentrate on helping the needy. Who decides who is the needy? Some complain about foreign people taking our jobs. They do more than our own, sharp every day, and by fuck, they put in a shift. I agree. And, I will use the American example once again. There's the Trump rhetoric of, the Mexicans come here and they're all out of asylums, they're all terrorists, they're all rapists, they're all thieves and murderers. The absolute truth, and the facts back it up. I wish I had them to hand. The facts back it up. If you enter the US illegally, you are so much less likely to commit a crime, because where you are now is better than where you came from. So you keep your head down, you keep your nose clean, and you go about your business. And I think that that accounts for the vast majority, exactly the same here. The vast majority of people that arrive here legally and illegally will want to keep their head down, their nose clean, their nose to the grindstone, because if they don't, they do face the very real possibility of being sent back from whence they came. That's my feeling on it. Anyway, as I said, I wasn't planning to talk about that. I will. When I start this new Substack, I'll let you know where it is. We'll never mention it again, because I don't want this show to be clouded by this stuff. You never talk about religion or politics. That's my mark. Why keep bringing skin color or religion into it, Mark? It's not a case of color or religion. It's a case of numbers and contributions. To be perfectly honest, the only reason I keep falling back onto the skin color thing is because that does seem to be the perception. In America and here, that there is a perception among a certain population: if you're white, you're all right; if you're not, you're not. Plain and simple. We and there is a double standard. There is a double standard. If you're white and you can't be asked to go to work, and you're claiming dole and you're claiming every benefit you can, and everything else, yeah, that's all right. If you're brown or black or a weird religion, yeah, we can't be having that. That's why I keep coming back to colour. Steve says life is shit in the moment in the UK, but to be honest, I'm happy. I've got a good job and a good life. Don't get involved in any other shit I can't change. Instead of focusing on others, focus on yourself and your family. And that is precisely why the tone of what I'm about to start writing is what it is. It's not really anti-Farage, although it kind of is. It's not anti-Trump, although it kind of is. The the big deal that I have, or the big problem that I have, is either through being in power or having an influence, the right, Trump, Farage, and their like, have the potential to make life worse for my children and my grandchildren. Even things like travel. I want my children and my grandchildren to be able to, at a moment's notice, say, we'll we quite fancy going to spend a year in France. Yeah, well, since the Brexit vote, that's not quite as straightforward. And I want to go on holiday at so and so. Well, that you need a special pass for that now. I don't want that, and even for me, as it stands at the moment, I am due to be in America in March next year. I'm looking forward to ConExpo. I'm looking forward to Las Vegas. I'm looking forward to catching up with all of the people there. I am dreading visiting America. One man has made a dream trip a deeply, deeply unpleasant thing. Natalie Huxtable just joined us as well. Morning, Natalie. Hope you're well. Any news? She says, hello, how are you? I'm very well. More specifically, how are you? Any news? Any news from the Didcot investigation? Let us know if you can. I agree, but there are more men than women and kids. Can you prove that? We've all seen the photographs in the Daily Mail of boats full of men. but that suits their narrative. Can you prove that there's more men than women and children coming in? Jim Turner says, take money out of the welfare system, you'll be left with the genuine people that need help. And what happens in the interim? If you stopped all benefits tomorrow to sort the wheat from the chaff, what happens to those people that actually do need it? We've got that situation in the States at the moment. I was going to call it a day in a minute. We've got that situation in the States at the moment. They're redrawing the rules and regulations based on their Social Security. While they're doing that, there will be people in America that will actually starve to death. One of the richest, if not the richest, nations in the world, one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful, and some of their citizens will starve to death while Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Stephen Miller, and their cronies rewrite the rules. I'm not good with that. Really not. Anyway, tomorrow there will be nothing. There will be no politics. Natalie's just said, I'm okay. We had a meeting last week. It's coming to the end of the investigation, but who knows? We might still be fighting in 5 years' time. We will never give up. Natalie, we're with you all the way. We're with you all of the way. I didn't say stop the benefits. I said take the money out. Well, how would that work? Am I missing a trick here? How do you take the money out but keep the benefits up? I don't know. Don't know. Anyway, people, that is an hour and 20 minutes of an hour-long show. I don't know how these things work. I'll be back tomorrow with more of the same. I say more of the same, not political tomorrow. I will do my best to produce a recap from today's show. I'm slightly concerned that it will end up being much more political than it will about the stuff that we were actually talking about. But we'll see. We'll see. Jim says, and then that money could be spent on employing people to help the needy. And those employees would be taxpayers. He's got it worked out. He's got it figured. Jim, here's a thought. Start your own Substack. I'm just saying. I don't agree with everything you say. I agree with an awful lot of it. Start your own. Natalie says, thank you. You've been with us since day one. You're an amazing person. I'm really not. I'm an absolute arsehole, Natalie, as anybody that knows me will tell you. But Didcot and Redcar have properly pissed me off. Properly pissed me off. So, yes, I will see that through to the bitter end. We're pulling for you, Natalie. Give my regards to the rest of your family, and I shall speak to you very soon. Steve says, but wait, where are the UK taxpayers that want to work? Yeah, and Paul Kalsich, I'm going to go with, not trying to take away Social Security. They did people who have been paying their whole lives will still get their money. It will go back a certain amount of time for people to be able to start their own retirement plan. Listen, this is not my area of expertise. All I can tell you is what I'm seeing, and what I am seeing is that Social Security that some people rely upon, the old, the infirm, the vulnerable, they are being prevented from having it, and there will be victims. There will be casualties of that. Paul, I'm guessing you may well be in the States, in which case I'm sure you've got a much better handle on it than I have. But let me know. And Kamal Sharma says something. I don't know what that is, but Kamal, good morning to you. And good morning to Paul as well. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let us know where you're watching from. Obviously over on Facebook, but don't know where you are in the world. Anyway, people, go and have a good day. Ignore everything that I've said. Most people normally do. I'll be back without the West Ham shirt tomorrow. I'll also be back without the politics tomorrow to talk about something completely different. Till then, everybody, have a fine and splendid day. And I'll see you tomorrow. All the best.